Good afternoon. My name is Brian Grimkowski. I'm one of the assistant directors of graduate admissions here at William Patterson University. I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your schedule to join us today for our webinar about our Psy.D program. I'm joined by Dr. Jan Mohlman, the program director, who is going to speak in just a moment at length about the program. Want to make sure you know just a couple things as we go through. First, I know time is perhaps even more precious than ever. I know this has been a very challenging time for many of us, and certainly whether you're taking a break from work, whether you're taking a break from family responsibilities, virtual learning for children, your time is very much appreciated. We're very happy that you were able to join us today. We hope to go over a lot of very detailed and helpful information in a reasonably short amount of time to allow you to get back to whatever it is you might need to do in your life and your schedule today. We are recording this presentation in its entirety, and we are going to be sharing the link to our YouTube channel before the end of the week. You can be on the lookout for an email, whether you need to duck out a little early for one reason or another, or whether someone joins us a bit late. It'll give you the opportunity to listen to the presentation in its entirety or part of it further down the line, whether that's from the comfort of your couch, the table, whatever is most convenient for you later. If you have any questions as we go through the presentation that aren't addressed, you can type them in the chat box on the GoToWebinar screen. I would stress if you have very case-specific questions, those are probably best reserved for a conversation with the graduate assistant for the psychology department, and that would be PSYD@WPU nj.edu. And I know that'll be shared again later in the presentation, but just wanted to make sure you were aware, we'll field those questions that would be a benefit for the full audience on the back end in a question and answer session for the presentation. So I know you're certainly not here to listen to me talk. You want to hear about what Dr. Mohlman has to say about her program. So without further ado, Dr. Mohlman, take it away.
Thank you so much, Brian, and welcome everybody. I'm Jan. You can just call me Jan if you're going to be asking questions at the end of today's presentation. So I'd just like to welcome you all, and I'd like to start with some news that makes me proud. We have now graduated our first cohort of students. I'm not sure how many of you are aware that we are a new program. We just launched in 2015. And because it takes 5 years to do all the coursework and training that's required to earn the Psy.D degree, this past August was our very first graduation ceremony. So I wanted to first show you that our first class of 4 has done really well. And in particular, if you look at the gentleman on the lower right side of the screen, this is Dr. Keith Hapawana. He is now, as of yesterday, a licensed clinical psychologist as well as a captain in the U.S. Air Force. So we have some high-achieving students already, and we're very proud of them. And here is our socially distanced graduation of 2020. So we love to start these presentations with the good news. Okay, so I wanted to start by, hey, Brian, can you move this thing on my screen, please? Brian, are you there? Okay, I guess not. I wanted to start by talking about the level of commitment in a program like this. This is the case for Psy.D and PhD programs in clinical psychology. This is not something that you would do if you've taken maybe one psych course as an undergrad and you thought it was interesting and you liked it, but you're really not sure if this is what you want for your career, or if you like to help people generally. Those are really great things, but that is not enough of a reason to strive to be admitted into a graduate program. So let me tell you what we look for in our applicants. First of all, you must already have some experience in the field. This could be a volunteer position that you had in a mental health facility. It could be that you worked as the coordinator in a research lab. Could be that you were a TA for one of your professors, etc. We try, honestly, to identify students who are not straight out of undergrad, but rather we look for people who are already experienced. So we really look for a deep commitment to the field, and we really especially want people in our program who have well-articulated goals. And you might be wondering what we mean by that. Here are 3 great examples of clearly articulated goals. I intend to conduct research and provide clinical services to adolescents diagnosed with eating disorders. I hope to work in a community clinic in a low-income urban neighborhood. Or I plan to open a group private practice and provide treatment to women recovering from breast cancer. So as you can see, you already have to have some pretty specific interests to be admitted into this program. Okay. The reason for this is that once you're admitted to the program, the time that's required to earn the Psy.D degree ranges anywhere from 5 to 10 years, depending on the pace with which you advance. It's also important to note that it is somewhat costly. Although some students receive financial aid, many, and I would even say most, graduate with some debt, and those who graduate who have paid their tuition fully along the way should expect to pay about $100,000 to attend this program. That's without any kind of financial aid or any other scholarship or something like that at all. So if you were just coming in, paying out of pocket, that's how much it would cost to attend a program like this. It's also important to consider that you will be at the level of a trainee for at least 5 years, after which you will still need to accrue additional supervised postdoctoral hours before you can be licensed. And then last, you need to pass the state licensing exam in the location of your intended work. So if you plan to open a practice here in New Jersey, that is the state licensing exam that you would need to take and pass. So there's a lot that goes into earning a Psy.D. This is the initial taste of what it requires. And here is the in-state and out-of-state tuition per credit. Plus, there are also some student fees. And because we can't promise anyone a graduate assistantship position or a scholarship of any kind at this point, this is potentially what you might end up paying to go to this program. Just for your information, this is quite typical in terms of tuition cost. Any Psy.D or PhD program that you pay for out of pocket will be around this same cost. Okay, so now let's move on to our mission statement. We strive to prepare students to become competent and highly skilled in the delivery and evaluation of psychological services. This includes psychotherapy, diagnosis, assessment, consultation, and other things. We really focus sharply on your ability to read, understand, and apply research literature. So please understand that a Psy.D degree is not a research degree like a PhD is. We expect you to graduate from our program and do full-time psychotherapy. However, every clinical decision that you make is going to be based on your ability to read and evaluate research. This is how the field works today in 2020, and this is known as evidence-based practice in clinical psychology. So our program is grounded in this practitioner-scholar model that emphasizes evidence-based theories and practice in all of the tasks that psychologists do. In this program, you will be exposed to lots of academic coursework. You will obtain supervised clinical training, and you're also expected to accrue research experience at each stage of your development. We also promote lifelong learning and continual self-improvement. So even when you're in your last year of our program, we, the faculty, are deeply committed to helping you continue on your developmental trajectory. Our program is 96 credits, and each of our classes is usually 3 credits. So it is definitely 4 years of coursework with probably 4 classes per semester for the first 3 years and 3 classes per semester for the 4th year. So 96 credits is very typical. No matter what Psy.D program you go to, you're probably going to be expected to complete at least 96 credits. Following your 4th year of coursework, you then have to apply for and win a clinical training position at an internship site. This is the 5th year of your training in which you work full-time in a setting out in the community, and you get paid a nominal fee. You're really technically still considered a student in your 5th year. After you complete the internship with satisfactory evaluations, you are then eligible to be awarded the Psy.D degree. Please note, however, that you're not done at that point. You still will have to sit for the state licensing exam. Our program prepares students to understand, prevent, and treat mental health problems and psychiatric disorders across the lifespan. So these are disorders that might be first detected in infancy all the way through disorders of later life. We are strong proponents of empirically supported interventions. This means that we do not train you to do talk therapy where your clients show up each week and you just talk about how their week was. We expect you to do far more rigorous work than that based on research and published psychotherapy protocols. Your experiential opportunities take place 100% out in the community. We do not have an in-house training clinic, and we don't expect to, simply because we don't have the funding for that. So if you were to attend our program, your clinical training would be at various sites in the New York, New Jersey area. And your clinical training begins in your 2nd year in the program, and it takes place usually 2 8-hour days every week. So what do our graduates end up doing? Well, we've only had 4 so far, 4 graduates, but you will be qualified to pursue positions in the community, like at a community mental health center. You can work at a hospital, a healthcare organization. You might be eligible for government jobs, and less frequently, a graduate of our program might work in some kind of industry position. You might also obtain clinical research positions in either private or public institutions, or you may obtain an academic or staff position in another university. Like I said earlier, you have to sit for your state's licensing exam before you can begin doing psychotherapy independently. And up until you pass the state licensing exam, all of your clinical work will be supervised by somebody with either a PhD or a PsyD in clinical psychology. So you really don't go off and work completely on your own until about year 7. So our program, because it's new, is only just now eligible for full accreditation by the American Psychological Association. However, you should know that we are currently accredited on contingency. That means that everything that we've done has been fully approved by APA, except for some longer term outcome data, which we submitted about 2 months ago. So we are on the verge of being fully accredited by the American Psychological Association. And that's good news because it's very difficult to get a job in this field if you have not attended an accredited program. I wanted to provide these two resources for you. The top resource is actually our Psy.D student handbook that, if you look at it, can probably answer any question you might have about our program that I don't cover today. You are strongly encouraged to seek out and read this handbook, and it should really help you make the decision about whether or not this is the right program for you. You can also email Ashley, who is our Psy.D program graduate assistant. This is her email address. So please snap a quick photo of this slide with your phone so that you have both of these addresses for later if you want them. This is a quick screenshot I took of a page from the student handbook that shows the full curriculum from year 1 straight through to year 5. And please know that this does not include a lot of other things that you're expected to do. This is only your coursework. And as you can see, you have quite a full schedule right up until year 4. There is typically only room for one elective, and that's sort of a longer story. If you are interested in earning a terminal master's degree along the way to the Psy.D, that allows you to teach as an adjunct professor at William Patterson University. So it's a really nice opportunity for people if they would like to try their hand at teaching and earn a little bit of money. If you opt for the terminal master's degree, then you have to take this Foundations of Career Development course instead of an elective course. So if you decide to go for the terminal master's degree, there is unfortunately no room for any electives or any wiggle room in the curriculum whatsoever. This is not a decision that we ourselves made. It's dictated by the APA, and it's just the way we have to do it. So please know that if you come to this program, your schedule is going to be set in stone without much flexibility. So it's a full-time commitment. And we even go so far as to recommend that if you are attending our program, we strongly also recommend that you not work at a job while you're in our program. There's simply not enough time to accomplish everything that's expected of you if you're working even a part-time position. Okay, your classes are offered on different days each year in the program to accommodate your external training. Classes at our program are very high importance. We notice and we evaluate your attendance and your participation in every class. Our classes are held in seminar format. And what that means is that most often your professor gives a mini lecture at the beginning of the class. Then students present research articles for the second hour. And then in the third half hour of each class, there's discussion, group discussions, other activities, or you have an in-class writing assignment. So attendance is mandatory in all of our classes. Faculty are very invested in your training, and we take it very seriously. We always do this with your best interests in mind. You'll receive feedback from the faculty at every stage of your training, And again, at times it's in your best interest, and at times this feedback will be critical to help you develop as a professional. You're going to be learning sets of very complex skills. And so this takes effort, persistence. You'll make a lot of mistakes, which is okay. We know that you will, and we expect that. But we also need you to be open to feedback. And that is actually something that we keep a close eye on throughout your time in the program. Oops, sorry. Okay, now I'm going to say a little bit about our various research mentors, and then I will open up the floor to your questions. Our newest faculty member, whose photo does not appear on this page, is Dr. Greg Bartoszek. He runs the Lab of Emotions and Affective Psychopathology. He does work on different emotions, particularly anxiety disorders. And you can see here that each student in his lab is doing a different type of work independently, as well as contributing to Dr. Bartoszek's work. That is the typical model for working in a lab. We also have an impulsive aggression research team. This is run by Dr. Megan Chezin, and typically people in this lab study suicide and other self-injurious behaviors in mental health patients. The Neuropsychology, Cognitive, and Clinical Neuroscience Lab is run by Dr. Bruce Diamond. And this is our one opportunity for Psy.D students to do neuropsych testing and related research. We do not have a neuropsych training track in our program. So if neuropsych is your main interest, then Dr. Diamond would be the mentor that you're going to want to list on your application to the program. I am Jan Mohlman, and I run the Cognition and Emotion Lab. We do studies on a really wide range of different things, including how doing fun activities can work as a treatment for depression. We look at how playing Pokemon Go affects mood. We look at whether or not older adults have good smartphone skills and whether they're able to use apps for mental health purposes. And we also look at, what else have we done? We have also looked at the way that messages, written messages about COVID-19, how they affect people emotionally, given different language that's used in the messages. So my lab is really broad ranging, and I hope that some of you will apply to work in my lab. Dr. Aileen Torres researches culture and resilience. She does a lot of work with children. In fact, she is the only faculty person in our program who does any work with children whatsoever. We do not have a specialty track in child psychology. So if that is your passion, Dr. Torres would be your mentor who you'd want to list on your application. I should also mention here, we get lots of applications from people who are interested in forensic psychology. We do not have any expertise in forensic psychology, and honestly, I recommend that if that is your passion, you look for a program with a special track in forensic, because that's a very specialized area that we really don't offer training in. Okay, and that's the end of our slideshow. We really value our students greatly. We expect a lot from you, but we are always there to help you reach those benchmarks. For example, many of our students have already co-authored papers that have been published in journals. And that, we believe, is the highest goal that our students can aim for. we already know that you're going to go off and be excellent therapists, but we expect even more from you than that. And like I said before, it is our pleasure and our life commitment to help you get there. Okay, so that was a lot of information thrown at you pretty rapidly. That's the end of my presentation. And so what I'd like to do now is open the floor to some questions from the audience. And Brian, I'm not really sure how we do this Q&A.
Sure. The best way for a student to ask a question right now is to type it in the chat box in the GoToWebinar screen right there. And as has been referenced at the front of the presentation and a little bit more recently, if you have a very case-specific question, I would encourage you to send an email to Psy.D at wpuNJ.edu. This would ensure you're able to work very closely with someone who can field your specific questions. If you have a more general question about the program, feel free to type it in the chat box on the GoToWebinar screen, and then we'll be able to delve into those questions a little bit more carefully, and I can read them off as they come in. So that we've already got a couple questions, and I know this probably won't come as a surprise to you.
Announce to everyone that if you have a question about prerequisites that we require to apply to our program, you can type them to Ashley, our GA. And if you have a question about whether certain courses that you've taken, either as a post-bac or in a master's program, if you have questions about whether or not those courses will transfer, I want to give you a heads up that we cannot answer questions like that until you have received an invitation for an interview for admission into our program. We simply do not have time to answer those questions for all of our applicants. And just to give you an idea of how competitive our program is, our application deadline is January 1st, but we already have 250 applications for just 10 spots. So that's why I'm not going to be able to tell you whether or not specific courses will transfer or whether or not you have an alternative prerequisite that you want to apply. I'm not going to be able to tell you today if that will transfer or not. Okay? I'm ready.
Thank you very much. As you might imagine, we had a couple follow-up questions come in about graduate assistantship positions. And certainly, we can talk a little bit more broadly about them, but one question specifically, how many in a calendar year does your department typically have available for students who apply for the program?
That is a really good question. Typically, I would say 6 or 7, but I am making absolutely no promises about this year because the university is in dire straits right now. We typically get 3 within our department, and then typically we have another 3 elsewhere in the university. So even though you might be a graduate student in the Psy.D program, your GA position could be in any number of other departments. And again, these are not guaranteed. Once we get the number that we are allotted each year from the provost, and that usually happens in March. Once we know that number, we then start looking at our pool of applicants, and we typically offer the GA positions to our highest ranked applicants. So this is a real tough thing to, you can't plan on getting a GA ahead of time, unfortunately.
And I know at one point, you made reference to the fact that you're looking for a prior professional experience in most instances from applicants. One student who is likely a current senior did ask if there have been any cases in which a student coming right from their undergraduate degree have been accepted and gone into the program.
Yes, but they typically have special qualifications, such as an exemplary performance in an honors program or has been working as a volunteer in a mental health or healthcare setting for a year or more. So you really do need some kind of qualification. It's not really enough just to come in as a psychology major who graduated with a BA, who's interested in the field. It's gotten to be so competitive that we typically look for more than that.
And then you had referenced earlier it being difficult for someone who's working full-time to commit and complete the program. But one individual wanted to know if that would be if that's something that's possible for a student to pursue the program successfully while also maintaining a full-time job.
Full-time job, I personally don't think it's possible, because you're often asked to be available for like town hall meetings, special commitments that take place throughout the year. So even if you find a way to wedge a full-time job into your packed schedule, there are going to be days when you are expected to be available to the program. So you really cannot. We've never had anyone work full-time. And actually, I don't think we would accept somebody if they said that they were not able to work part-time instead, or not at all. We just can't do it.
Thank you.
There's not, yeah.
Sure, thank you very much. And I know there's been sort of a gradual evolution since March where we've all made an adjustment to the COVID-19 world and sort of gotten a sense for how that's affecting academia. Can you talk a little bit about current students that are in the program, how these changes have been accommodated, how the program has adjusted now that we're dealing with COVID-19 and things are a little bit different in terms of scheduling and modality? Could you talk a little bit about how it has impacted the program?
Honestly, our students really like not having to commute, look for parking, find food. So actually, in many ways, the fact that we're doing mostly remote teaching has worked in our favor. There are a few classes that meet and as very small groups in very large classrooms with social distancing and masks. And you know, we have to wait for word from the university president and the provost to figure out what format we're going to use for teaching at any given moment. So if the state is in phase 2, that means that we are able to teach in either hybrid or high flex format, and that is where part of the class comes in person and the other half of the class either live streams or we record the session and they watch it on their own time. This doesn't mean that you can set your own schedule, because many of our classes are synchronized. In other words, they take place at the same time on the same day every week. Okay, so that's what we've done. And all mental health treatment right now is being done over teletherapy. I'm not sure, I can't tell you exactly which telehealth programs are being used because this is different at every single site. There might be a few testing sites that are seeing people in person. However, they're using plexiglass barriers and taking lots of steps to make sure that everyone is safe and stays healthy. So I would say that we are overwhelmingly in like a sort of hybrid format of either small groups mixed with either online or live stream classes. There are very few classes that are fully online, but there are a few.
Thank you very much. And another student wanted to know if you could elaborate a little bit more on how the mentoring and advising relationships are established for the program.
You will see when you look at the application, we require you to list your top 2 mentors for research on your application to the program. This year, I believe that all 5 of us are taking new students. So you would simply have to look through the faculty web pages they go much more into detail than what I just showed you in the slideshow. I would spend some time looking at each faculty web page and decide which one seems right for you and your interests. And the faculty are pretty different in what we do. So it should be fairly obvious to you who would be your top 2 mentors.
And then another question that came in, wanted to know more about the role that psychoanalysis would potentially play or typically play into the program.
0. We do not promote or even approve of the use of Freudian psychoanalysis. We are the opposite end of the spectrum. We are evidence-based psychotherapy.
And then
there are
go ahead.
programs for psychoanalysis. In fact, I think NYU has one, but we will never have that.
And another student asked about the accreditation process, how long it usually takes to get accredited, and then our projected date.
It takes 5 to 6 years, and we are in year 5.5 right now. We submitted our last APA self-study 2 months ago, and I was hoping that we would already have heard whether we were getting a site visit or not this year. However, just a few days ago, I learned from APA that because of COVID-19, they're running about 2 to 3 months behind, even on reading these self-studies for accreditation. So my guess is that we will be granted a site visit for summer of 2021, and that hopefully by fall of 2021, we will be fully accredited. The APA does not hand out accredited on contingency status unless they are almost positive that you will indeed be fully accredited. So we have interpreted that as a really good sign that we were accredited on contingency after being only 3 years in existence, which is the earliest possible point that we could have applied for accreditation. So we are very well situated, and we're very confident that we will be fully accredited by next fall, but we are stuck in a holding pattern waiting for APA.
And then another question about if the program, we'll say for an out-of-state student, is the program catered towards students taking the New Jersey state licensing exam? And if, for example, they were from New York or another state, how difficult is it for someone to practice out of state and get licensed in both states?
That's a great question. The licensing exam is national, but then on top of that, certain states require another exam. So for example, New Jersey requires both the national written exam, which is a multiple choice test. You're required to pass at the 76th percentile or higher, I believe. So you have to be in the top quartile. And then after that, if you want to practice in New Jersey, I believe there's an oral exam that you have to do after you've passed the written. And I don't think it's necessarily all that difficult, but there's a lot of material that you have to study for the national exam. So we try to prepare you for that, but more than that, we follow APA's guidelines for training because that's what we have to do to get accredited. Once you're ready to start studying for the licensing exam, I strongly recommend that students obtain special study aids through a company called AAATBS. I think that's the name of it. And this is a long-standing test prep company that provides sample exams and study guides for the psychology licensing tests that's at the national level. But that's a long way away. That's in your 6th year.
And another student said, a lot of community mental health centers and programs struggle to find bilingual or diverse therapists. What is being done for the program to implement diversity within the staff and its students?
Well, a lot of what we do is actually at the university level and not at the level of our program. So we follow WPU's guidelines for maintaining a diverse environment. We take any student who meets our criteria. We don't, obviously we don't discriminate. We take students from other nations. We currently have a student from Southeast Asia, we have a student from Africa, and we have a student from the Middle East. So you will see a lot of diversity in our student body. I will tell you that for one reason or another, the vast majority of our applicants are from the state of New Jersey. So if you take a look at the demographics of our state, those are echoed very well in our student body. Within our program, we highlight diversity a lot. We have certain events and we have mentorship programs for students from different racial and ethnic minority groups. We have special opportunities that we pass on to you for awards and fellowships. And these don't come from our school, they come from external sources. And we try to do everything we can to maintain a diverse environment. You also are trained in how to administer psychotherapy to different groups, to people who might be very different from you in one way or another, whether that's socioeconomic status, skin color, religion, sexual orientation, etc. So that is all very much a part of our field, and we gladly include that in our curriculum and also in our clinical training.
And you had referenced details about just how competitive this program is, obviously. And a question came in on if you could elaborate on what, specifically you guys are looking for. What makes an applicant competitive from such a large pool overall for you?
Well, this is really spelled out in our application. So in a nutshell, I would say goodness of fit. So you are going to be relying on your mentor a lot as you advance through the program. And so that really necessitates that you have a mentor who is able to support your interests and your passions within the field. So I really believe that it all starts with the selection of somebody who's really going to make a great mentor for you. So it's all about the goodness of fit and how strong an argument you can craft in your personal statement for why our program and this particular mentor seems like the ideal place for you to come and blossom as a clinical psychologist. So I would say it's goodness of fit.
And then obviously sometimes you have a case where you might have a student who on the undergraduate level wasn't giving a lot of thought to a psychology path for themselves and may have changed and gone on and earned a master's degree in psychology. How might having a degree in another area on the undergraduate level restrict a student who's potentially applying for the program with a master's in psychology, or can it potentially restrict their competitiveness for the program?
Oh, no, that wouldn't restrict you if you're coming in with a master's degree. And in fact, some of your courses from that master's program might even transfer into our program, although we cannot guarantee that. So I believe there's a limit on how many credits we can take from other master's programs. We have to do a very careful audit of the courses that you've taken and the courses on our curriculum. And then we render a decision on which courses we'll accept. And then that allows you to waive some of the 96 credits that we require. So it just all depends in terms of what classes you've taken and whether or not they meet our minimum requirements according to APA for each of our courses.
And I don't know.
Just in case you don't realize this, master's programs in psychology, even in clinical psychology, are accredited by different accreditation bodies than Psy.D programs. So oftentimes students are very surprised when they come in with master's degrees and they learn that only 2 or 3 of their courses are going to transfer over. The reason is that APA is much more rigorous in their requirements, even for lower level graduate courses. So that's what constrains us in deciding which courses we're going to let you waive and which we make you take maybe over again.
And I know that this can vary a bit from year to year, and you may not have the data off the top of your head, but one attendee asked how many offers are typically made each year for the program.
Oh, I can tell you that we this year are going to try to each take 2 new students, and that equals 10.
Okay, thank you very much.
And as of now, we have 250 applications, and we've got about another 2 months for applications to keep coming in.
Thank you very much. It looks like, at least as of right now, there is a lull in the questions. So for one, your presentation was very, very thorough. And 2, obviously we answered a number of questions. There are a couple that I can just type a quick answer to that are a little bit more simple, and I will do so. We are going to stick around for a couple of minutes in case any other questions come through. But Dr. Mohlman, I want to thank you for your presentation. This was wonderful and very helpful. For everyone who is in attendance today, we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to join us. Certainly, the Graduate Admissions Office is here to assist. If you have any questions about the application process, we can be reached simply at graduate@wpunj.edu. I know we gave the email address earlier for the psychology department. You can always reach out to them directly with your case-specific questions. But thank you again for your time. Thank you for joining us. If you haven't applied already, we hope you'll consider doing so. Again, the deadline for the program is January 1st, so certainly sooner rather than later with the holidays coming up. And for all of us here at William Patterson, thank you so much for your time. Be safe, enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope to hear from you soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.